Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Hannah. So I'm sitting in front of the cat tree because light is unfortunately a scarce commodity in this apartment. So I am literally like in the best spot for some light so you can actually see me. It's cloudy and rainy here and it's also the evening now, so the lights in here just can't keep up with that. Anyway, today is the start of another reading vlog, and if you just saw my last one, you might know what this one's gonna be. Tonight I will be starting Circe by Madeline Miller. So I just read the Song of Achilles and I had to wait 4 months on my library's waiting list for it to be my turn to pick that book up, and this one I waited 3 days. So I'm kind of curious why this one isn't as popular as Song of Achilles. From what I understand, Circe is essentially Song of Achilles but the female version. And I wonder if that's the reason, if because it's female focused, just not as many people are as interested in that perspective, which would be kind of sad if that's the case. Because I've heard that this is still a really good book, not quite as good as the Achilles one, but that it's still a great read. So it's kind of baffling to me, especially since there's been so much hype around the other book. Obviously, Madeline Miller's been getting a lot more attention, and so you'd think more people would then read this. So like I said, pretty much all I know about this is that it's essentially female Song of Achilles. I think Circe is like on an island by herself or something like that, but that's literally all I know. So let's read the description together. Also, this one is also like the previous one where it has like the thick, kind of old, weathered looking edges. Alright, so it says the daring, dazzling, and highly anticipated follow-up to the New York Times bestseller, The Song of Achilles, that brilliantly reimagines the life of Circe, formidable sorceress of the Odyssey. So before, we had the Iliad, and so I think then this is the Odyssey. So that's pretty cool. Alright. In the house of Helios, god of the sun and mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. But Circe is a strange child, not obviously powerful like her father, nor viciously alluring like her mother. Turning to the world of mortals for companionship, she discovers that she does possess power, the power of witchcraft, which can transform rivals into monsters and menace the gods themselves. That's cool. I love a good witch story. And I find witches just fascinating in general. So her being a witch, and I think I remember that a bit now, because I think she's supposed to be the first witch, if I'm remembering correctly, but don't quote me on that one. Alright. Threatened, Zeus banishes her to a deserted island, where she hones her occult craft, tames wild beasts, and crosses paths with many of the most famous figures in all of mythology, including the Minotaur, Daedalus and his doomed son, Icarus, the murderers Medea, and of course, wily Odysseus. Well, Odysseus was in the last one, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does in this. But there is danger too, for a woman who stands alone, and Circe unwittingly draws the wrath of both men and gods, ultimately finding herself pitted against one of the most terrifying and vengeful of the Olympians. To protect what she loves most, Circe must summon all of her strength and choose, once and for all, whether she belongs with the gods she is born from or the mortals she has come to love. With unforgettably vivid characters, mesmerizing language, and page-turning suspense, Circe is a triumph of storytelling, an intoxicating epic of family rivalry, palace intrigue, love and loss, as well as a celebration of indomitable female strength in a man's world. So this one actually sounds very interesting and very fun, and this is one where I really don't know much of the story beforehand, so unless they straight out tell us what's going to happen in the beginning like with the previous book, I'm definitely going to be more surprised by this one. Also, there is a bit of a map in the front here. It's pretty cool. The name of this island is literally just A's and I's, apparently. Like, Ayaya? I don't know. But it says Laurel Grove, Cliffs, the Cave, Circe's home, pool, Molly? Okay. And there's a little wolf. And down below it says, oh god, Sharbidis, Scylla, the harbor, Trick Tides. Yeah. This is gonna be another interesting one with the names for sure. So since this is a Madeline Miller book, I am expecting it to be good. I'm expecting to enjoy the story, and I really liked her writing in the first one. So even though I'm going through this with not as much knowledge or expectations as I did with Song of Achilles, I still think this is probably going to be at least a 4-star read. And now that I read the description, I'm even more interested in it actually. Since these books are so close to each other though, I'd really like to see an analysis on why this one doesn't have the popularity that Song of Achilles does. Anyway though, I'm excited to get into this, so let's get started. Hold on a second. So just sitting here, I read the first sentence and I like this book already. It says, "When I was born, the name for what I was did not exist." That just sounds so cool, and knowing that she goes into like witchcraft and stuff, that's just, I don't know, I think I'm really gonna enjoy this one. It is Thursday around noon, and I am on chapter 7, page 77, so a lot of 7s going on there, of Circe, and this is not really what I was hoping so far. So the beginning of this is definitely a lot slower than Achilles was, and in my opinion, it's a bit more dull, because it's pretty much the stereotypical gods being dicks, and since Circe is very, very isolated and doesn't know much of the real world, she's very naive, and she pretty much makes like silly first love type mistakes where she pretty much just latches on to the first person that is kind to her and doesn't exactly make the best decisions with that. So essentially we're at the point now where it's right before she is taken to the island, or at least that's what it seems like. So I'm hoping that the story will start picking up more from there, since we'll pretty much just have her as the only character, I believe. But this one definitely isn't absorbing me into the story like Achilles did. It feels a little meandering, definitely slower, but it's about the same number of pages as Achilles was. So really hoping, loud noise. So really hoping that the pace picks up a little bit and more interesting things start happening. But now that she kind of knows that she has powers, it should definitely get more into like the witchcraft aspect of things. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of that. So it's a little bit later in the afternoon. I'm now on chapter 11, page 137. And so about page 80, we get to the island, and by page 100, we're already off the island. I really don't know if we even end up back there. I really hope so, because that's been my favorite part so far, is just what she's been doing there and kind of discovering her powers and stuff. So a really weird event just happened, and I don't really like it. Essentially, her sister summoned her to her kingdom and needed her help with something, and it turned out to be really, really messed up. And essentially it has to do with the Minotaur and stuff. So yeah, just your usual weird, bizarre Greek myth things. That's pretty much where I'm at here. We actually just met Circe's sister's daughter. How do you say it? Ariadne? Ariadne, which I just watched a video earlier today of a book that has that as the title and is about that character, so I thought that was kind of interesting. So, and that's by a different author too. Oh, and there's a little tortilla. So I'm kind of hoping from here that Circe ends up going back to her island, but I really don't know. I'm not sure where this is gonna go from here. It just feels a little like stop, go kind of deal. And also her family is just the worst. Once again, I'm reading outside. It is now Friday and it's super windy out, so my hair is kind of going all over the place. I am now on chapter 16, page 206, I believe it is, of Circe, and pretty much right when I started reading, which I think was chapter 11, we are back on the island and she pretty much stays there by herself again for a bit. And then other minor deities start kind of sending the daughters that they want to punish there. And she's just kind of like, what the hell? I don't want these people here. But she can't really get help from anyone to get rid of them. So she just kind of accepts it. And then we get to the part in the description where it talks about her like turning men into pigs. And I don't really understand why people keep continuing to sail to her island if they're like never seen again. So not sure why that keeps happening. But pretty much right where I ended is where Odysseus comes into the picture, and I guess she turned his crew into pigs, and so he's basically like, yo, I want my crew back. And she's just like, well, we're gonna have to make a deal for that. The descriptions of her like making her droughts and her potions and just basically tinkering with flowers and things and working in her garden, I really enjoy. Like, just hearing her do like witchy stuff is really interesting to me, and honestly I would have liked more of that. So there's been a lot more characters in this book than I expected, considering that she's supposed to be exiled and exiled alone. But pretty much she can't leave the island, but anyone who wants to can come to hers. So that's kind of what's been happening. This has definitely been slower than the Achilles book by far. I really don't understand at all how much time has been passing. Sometimes it'll talk about the seasons, but then she'll be like, oh, I've been alive for hundreds of generations. And so I'm just like, I don't know. I can't tell what's going on. So it's kind of hard to keep track of time, but for the gods in here, it is as well, so I guess it kind of makes sense. I do enjoy the writing. There's some scenes and just single sentences that are just so poetic or so beautiful, and I'm really enjoying those aspects of it. That's really similar to the Achilles book as well. And I just realized I'm over halfway done. That's where I'm at. Well, I guess I should do it this way. That's where I'm at right now. So I'm kind of interested to see where the rest of this book goes, because there hasn't really been a main plot where we kind of see like, oh, this is the direction it's going to go, or oh, this is how it's going to end. I really have no idea what's going to happen. Circe is essentially on her island waiting for the events to come to her. So she's not exactly seeking any of this out or progressing the plot forward herself. This one also doesn't have prophecies like Achilles does. Achilles is just chock full of them. This one doesn't really have the prophecies, or it doesn't seem like at least the foreshadowing that the previous book had. So this one is kind of just like you're along for the ride and you don't really know what's going to happen or what's coming up. But I do hope it gets a bit more interesting, as this middle part has been okay, but for me it's just been average, so more toward like 3-star at the moment. So we'll see how the rest of this goes. So I am back outside again because it's another nice day. It is Saturday, and usually we play D&D on Saturdays, but someone's out of town until tomorrow, so we're waiting till tomorrow to do that. So I've gotten to chapter 19, page 257 or something like that, and things have been happening. So Odysseus comes to the island, and it's after the Trojan War, so it's after all of the events that take place in the Song of Achilles. And so he's there with a ship of his men, he originally left with 12 ships and it was just them left, so a lot of bad things had happened for him after the war and everything. And pretty much he tells Circe about Achilles and Patroclus and all of the things that happened with that war, and she basically falls in love with him, and there's some kind of prophecy with him as well, but he eventually has to leave. All of this kind of turns Athena's gaze onto Circe, and now Circe and Athena are kind of feuding, so this still has a lot more characters doing things than I really expected from this book. I'm wondering if the conclusion is going to be like Athena versus Circe or something like that. There is like 120 pages left, and it'll be interesting to see if we stay on the island or end up somewhere else. But for now, everything's been happening on the island. The nymphs are gone now, so we're pretty much back to just Circe, and essentially the gods are still dicks. Hey, it is now Tuesday, and to be honest, I kind of forgot I was doing a reading vlog on this book, but I have finished Circe. So the past few days, well, past few weeks really, my sleep's been really messed up, and it's really starting to get to me. So I think that's kind of why I forgot, but the past few days especially have just been kind of a blur. So I don't know how much of this I'm actually gonna remember, to be honest, but here we go. So this was not the book I expected. I truly thought this was going to be the female version of Song of Achilles, where there was going to be like some sort of sapphic romance, and that is 100% not the case. It went in a completely different direction, and it's also, instead of just being about Circe, it's pretty much about Odysseus and his family as well, and kind of the second half of his life and everything. And that kind of caught me off guard, because Circe is like in exile, yet there are a million other characters in this, and it's just like, damn, you are popular for an exiled chick. Unfortunately, this book grew dull for me. I thought the beginning was also kind of slow in just getting to the island, and then once we're there, she pretty much leaves right away, and then there's constantly people just coming and going from her island and stuff, and it just goes from there, where it just talks about all these events, like big and small, that happen while she is in exile, and it just kind of meanders along until she decides what she wants to do with her life, really. However, I never really found Circe's voice in this book to be very strong, and it doesn't exactly feel like she changes much, even though she kind of does, so it's weird. It feels strange. So in the end, this book was just average for me. I gave it a 3. I completely understand why there isn't the hype surrounding this as there is for its predecessor. There's just no way it can live up to that. I did think the ending was fine. However, like, I don't want to say any spoilers. It gets a bit weird, I will say that, and I don't really know how to feel about it yet. I'll definitely read whatever Madeline Miller comes out with next, but I won't be going into it with such high like hopes and expectations, and I'll probably read more about the description before picking it up as well. This one for me definitely had more mythological aspects to it than Achilles did. This one, there's a lot of people telling stories, and like you have to deal with the Minotaur, and I don't know how to say her name, like Skyla or whatever. And so this one has to do with a lot of more minor myths and ones that don't originally have to do with Circe. So if you just kind of like hearing about those, you might like this a bit better. But I was really hoping to see more of Circe's witchcraft and kind of her journey with that. That's really what I was interested in going into this. And we don't exactly get all of that, but what we do, I did enjoy. So that's kind of why for me this was just kind of like a, hey, it was okay, but not the greatest. It also just felt too long. It's about 380 pages, and honestly the last 100 pages I was kind of struggling through a bit. I was just ready for it to be I was just ready for it to be done and to move on to something else. So I'm pretty glad I'm finally finished with this. As always, thank you for hanging out with me. The background is a bit of a mess right now, but I don't exactly feel the greatest. The end of this is a little bit low energy than normal, but hopefully that'll be remedied by the next video. And until then, bonne journée and au revoir.